Thank you very much, Terry. And I'm not going to reveal how that all happened. Reverend clergy and Senator Voinovich, Honorable Ralph Perk Jr., other public officials, and honored guests, it's an honor for me to have been asked by Irene Morrow, event chair, to say a few words this afternoon. I'm so glad that Irene did this because the last time the American Nationalities Movement had an event, Rocky asked me to speak, only to find that I had a conflict I couldn't get out of. And he said, well, that's okay, the program's already printed, we'll just say you couldn't make it. So at least I'm glad that Irene checked first before the program was printed. I'd also like to extend my congratulations to Irene as this year's recipient of the Freedom Award. I know it's one of the worst kept secrets around, but she knows that. Also, congratulations to the tireless working George Turbrack and Lucy Salvaggio-Sticken for their efforts on behalf of their respective heritages. Ko peva zlo ne misli, which in Serbian means, he who sings has no bad thoughts. One of my most memorable recollections about the late beloved mayor of Cleveland, Ralph Perk, happened during his term as mayor at the then relatively new Cleveland Convention Center. There was a major Serbian function occurring at the Convention Center with the well-known Chicago Serbian Tamburica Orchestra. Knowing of Mayor Perk's Czech heritage, the musicians started to play Czech songs, and Mayor Perk joined in with his wonderful voice and sang along with the orchestra. While I already respected him for his political achievements and his integrity, my admiration and respect grew immensely in that moment because he was a public official who was not ashamed of his nationality and his heritage. Of course, it was that pride, love of nationality and heritage that led him to found the American Nationalities Movement more than 50 years ago. As we mark what would have been his 100th birthday, we owe him a debt of gratitude. Ralph Perk was born in 1914 in Cleveland's Fleet neighborhood and was a lifelong member of Our Lady of Lourdes Church. He and his wife, Lucille, had 7 children, 19 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. He was a city councilman and county auditor prior to serving as the 52nd mayor of Cleveland from 1971 to 1977. Personally, I have always found it impressive and a testament to Mayor Perk that as a Republican, he was elected mayor of a heavily Democratic city. He was respected not only locally, but on a national level. He had close ties to Dwight Eisenhower, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, and Gerald Ford, and those relationships helped him bring many federal dollars to Cleveland. Long before he was elected mayor in the 1950s, he was instrumental in getting President Eisenhower to declare the 3rd week of July as Captive Nations Week to raise public awareness of the oppression of peoples living in communist and other non-democratic societies. Every president since has continued to recognize the 3rd week of July as Captive Nations Week. It was, of course, that same zeal and passion that led him to found the American Nationalities Movement, an organization which has served as a voice for those who are unable to speak for themselves. Mayor Perk was a strong proponent of regionalism of public services. It was during his tenure that the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District and the RTA were created. We also have him to thank for Chester Commons, the expansion of Public Auditorium, and Minzenti Plaza. For all his achievements in public and private life, those who knew Mayor Perk know that he always remained a man of the people who never forgot his roots, as evidenced by the time I saw him sing those Czech songs with the band. He loved his heritage and at the same time loved Cleveland. He was a true advocate for this city and truly appreciated and valued Cleveland's rich ethnic and cultural diversity. He serves as an inspiration for us still, reminding us that we must not forget our roots while at the same time devoting ourselves to this city, contributing our talents to continue to make Cleveland a wonderful place to live. Certainly, if Mayor Perk were with us today, he would be delighted at the success of the American Nationalities Movement. From its humble beginnings, it has grown by leaps and bounds. Today, the organization has more than 500 members and represents more than 45 nationalities. Many of the nations that were captive in the 1950s are now free. Yet, too many people around the world still live under oppressive regimes. So as a movement, our purpose remains. It is twofold: to raise awareness of those who seek to be free and to honor, preserve, and call attention to the many nationalities represented in Greater Cleveland. Like you, I believe strongly in Greater Cleveland. I would like to think that I, in some small way, have devoted my life to making this city a better place for those who live here. And while Cleveland has many great attributes, I believe that one of its greatest assets is cultural diversity. While I was publisher of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, I created Mosaic, a monthly PD section featuring our area's different cultural groups, traditions, and faiths. Unfortunately, when I retired nearly 8 years ago, Mosaic was eliminated. I believed then, and still strongly believe, that our diversity is something to be embraced. It is a source of strength rather than division. In order to get the most from our diversity, we must work together. By your presence here today and your membership in the American Nationalities Movement, I know you believe, as I do, that the ethnic and cultural diversity of Cleveland is something to be cherished and preserved, and that we have a role to play. I know that as the generations pass, it can be a challenge to preserve our ethnic heritages, and yet this is a challenge we must meet to embrace our prized American values like freedom of speech and religion and the rule of law, and at the same time not to lose that beauty and richness of our ethnic backgrounds. I am sure that each of you can think of many aspects of your ethnic heritage that are worth preserving. In addition to the wonderful foods and music and traditions, we must cling to the values like love of God, love of family, hard work, honor, and personal responsibility, which are deeply woven in our heritages. It is these values that have enabled our success, that have shaped who we are, and which we must pass on to future generations as fertile soil in which they can lay a true foundation. In today's society, the focus seems to be on everyone getting his 15 minutes of fame. We are quickly losing a sense of community and togetherness in favor of self-promotion and aggrandizement. Rather than gather face-to-face, we interact virtually. That is why we need, more than ever, organizations like this one, where we can gather in friendship and common concern to celebrate and promote the deeper, meaningful values that were instilled in us by our parents and grandparents and which contributed to the building of this great nation. My parents and grandparents were not prosperous in a material sense, but they knew what was important. They never took for granted the freedoms and opportunities that America afforded. And they never lost sight of their values. Values of hard work, respect, compassion for your neighbor, and living by your word. These can be discouragingly hard to find in today's society, and yet they are essential. As these values were handed down to us, we must do our part to carry them forward by instilling them in future generations. This is a crucial role that I see for the American Nationalities Movement, more than 50 years after its founding, to remember the values and beauty of our respective nationalities and to ensure that they become woven into the fabric of future generations in this country. We must endeavor to promote these values. It is what has made this nation great. Our other role, also vital, is to serve as a voice for the voiceless. As I said, the countries from which many of us hail are now free. Thank God. But too many countries still live under oppressive regimes. According to Freedom House, an organization which conducts an annual ranking of countries, 47 countries today are not free, with another 58 ranked as partly free. These countries are found around the world, in Latin America, Africa, East Asia, Central Asia, and even Eastern Europe. According to the organization's findings, freedom has shown more declines than advances in the past 7 years. It is astounding to think that at the close of 2013, that this is the state of world affairs, but this is what it is. It reminds us that our work is far from done, and our movement is as needed today as ever before. Nelson Mandela said, quote, "For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others." So although we live without chains, I would echo that we are called to continue working for the freedom of our brothers and sisters around the world who at this very moment live under oppression. Let us also encourage our representatives in Washington to speak out against the persecution of Christians around the world. In closing, as we remember our founder, let us honor Ralph Perk's memory in the following ways. 1, by being great champions of Cleveland and contributing our time and talents as he did to make it a better city for all. 2nd, by continuing to preserve and promote the richness of our many nationalities and the values which we hold dear, ensuring that future generations reap the same benefits that we have reaped. And finally, let us use our voices to act as advocates for those around the world who still yearn to be free. Thank you, and may God grant you good health and happiness throughout the holiday season and New Year.